of you have a little blue sheet of paper. I handed this to some of you with some instructions, and those of you who came late, just saw me drop it on your desk. Is there anybody who doesn't have a blue sheet of paper?
Should I count that?
On that sheet of paper, what I'd like you to do is write down numbers 1, 2, and 3. And next to number 1, I'd like for you to take a look at this juice that I have in this bottle and tell me what flavor you think this might be. So this is juice number 1. This is juice number 2. And what flavor do you think this might be? And juice number 3. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, I'll set these over here for now. Color and the food that we eat. When I pulled up these 3 different colors of juice, I'm pretty sure you know what they are. Or at least you have a pretty good idea that you know what they are. You're pretty sure. But there's been a lot of studies and discussions about how color influences our perception, how it influences in the topic of food, how we perceive the taste, the quality of the food, and the intensity of the flavor that we experience. If that red was a little bit redder, you might have a different expectation of what flavor that juice is. Now the topic came to me when my youngest son did a science fair experiment. And we took this juice, just like this, we took it out to friends and relatives, and we didn't just have them look at the color, we actually had them taste the juice. So taste the red, taste the yellow, taste the green, and write down what flavor we tasted. Now in the experiment, and as we have here, they're all apple. But we've colored some of them with food coloring. And the interesting thing in our science experiment was the people who tasted red, they tasted cherry, strawberry, and what I thought was most surprising, cranberry. Because cranberry has a very unique tart taste, yet it's apple. So the red coloring sort of threw them off. Most of them got the yellow one, apple. And the green, we had a couple of lemon limes, but a lot of people also guessed apple for that one. But the red is the one that threw them off, and I thought, that is very interesting. So it got me looking into that topic a little bit deeper, and I wanted to share with you today a study. This is not my title, I wish I was that clever, but Great Expectations is a study that was performed by the folks at Oxford University. And there's been lots of studies, like I said, to this effect. How does the color change our perception of flavor? But they were taking it a little bit deeper. Now, when I went out to my friends and colleagues, they were all, here in Rochester. They're all people that I know. We probably share a lot of the same experiences. So when we look at red, we have something in common. We think, strawberry, cherry, cranberry. They're all flavors that we're very familiar with. But what Oxford University wondered is, how do we make this more substantial? There's lots of these studies that have gone on, and they're yet inconclusive. But what their theory is that it's based on culture and based on your experiences, and that the individual experiences that I've had in my lifetime, when I say cherry, I have a distinct flavor that I'm recognizing based on my past. And someone else might have that strawberry flavor that's different, but it's predominant for them because of their experiences. So this is what they were trying to prove. And in the Great Expectations study, what they did is they had 20 people who were British at Oxford University, and they had them take a look, well, let me step back. They had 20 people at Oxford University. They had 15 Taiwanese individuals, and I can't remember the name of the university, but it was in Taiwan. So they took 2 separate segments and conducted the same experiment to see if they would get similar results. People with very different cultures, very different backgrounds. How do they perceive these flavors, just based on color? They actually had 7 samples. They took the different liquids, and actually what this is just water in a similar cup. There's 6 colors shown here. The 7th one was a clear liquid. But it's water, and then these are tinted with different food colorings. And that's all, they had all the different measurements of all the different food colorings, so they knew exactly it was exactly the same. And they presented a cup out one at a time to the individuals and asked them to tell them what flavor it was, just like we did with the juice. Look at the color, tell me what flavor you think it is. And so they conducted these two experiments with these two populations. And one of the interesting things that they saw is the green, primarily across both groups, apple. They went back green apple. The red, they thought the same things like we did, cherry, strawberry, pretty predominant. When you started to get into the other colors, the blue, the yellow, and the orange, it started to vary, but mostly it was fruits and vegetables. And it was a little bit different based on their geographic area. There wasn't anything that was predominant across the group. It was pretty spread out. The brown one, which is where they believe they proved their theory. In sample A, is that the British group, 70% of which said that that is a cola flavor. And the Taiwanese, nobody said cola. The Taiwanese, just about half, this was the greatest number for the brown, just about half said grape. But none of the British people said grape. That didn't cross their minds. The majority thought it was cola. So in the experiment, Grape Expectations, they believe that through this sample, they've proved their theory. That based on the experiences of those individuals, based on the culture and what they're exposed to, it has a different expectation based on the color that they saw. I just thought that was really interesting. I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted you guys to try it out. What did you write down for the red? Number one.
Strawberry.
Cherry. Anybody else have anything different?
Raspberry.
Orange. Not too radical. This one? Apple. Do you have anything other than apple?
Peach.
Lemon, peach,
Orange.
orange. And the green? Wine.
Yeah,
Watermelon.
watermelon.
Green apple. Well, I would have loved to have had you each sample this and see if you would have had the same results as our science experiment did. Again, there was, I think, out of the 20 people that we sampled for our science experiment, there was one person who said apple, apple, apple. So take that as information, and I'll conclude with that.
We'll ask our timer for 1 minute for evaluation. Third and final speaker for the day is Mr. Chris Gibby, without a now. Chris recently participated in our club speech contest in the humor category, and will be moving on to the area contest, which is Saturday, as Amy mentioned earlier. Chris is practicing today in rehearsal for that event, and afterwards we're going to have an open evaluation session where all feedback will be welcome for Chris. His title today is Digital World, and this is part of, as I mentioned, part of his humorous contest preparation. He's asked for 5 to 7 minutes. Please help me welcome Chris.
Thank you. I'm going to take advantage of the water today. Those are a couple of geeky buzzwords that are associated with making various things these days. And I have always identified myself as a geek, but just not a wealthy one that's always after the latest and greatest gadgets. I set myself to get excited over more attainable things, like baking bread. I have been baking it and geeking about it for 8 years. As long as it's simple white or honey or wheat. I can debate with anyone the merits of high hydration or low hydration dough. Do you use high heat or low heat? Is there a starter or a sponge involved? Do you have instant or cake yeast? How about all-purpose or bread flour? Do you need it a lot? Or leave it alone and not at all? These debates, though, had a little side effect, and I started to worry that they were affecting my essence of my geekdom. I had started a bread journal and was meticulously measuring out my ingredients on a digital scale. But did that really mean that I was now a bread nerd? Of course it did. I love the best of both the analytical and the excitable worlds, so I now identify as a GERD. Miss Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially our distinguished guests, it is as a GERD that I am going to bring digital makery to the masses. I am going to unplug your state-of-the-art notions and take your power grid to the core. It was May 31st, and I found myself taking a left-hand turn off of the paved road of progress and onto the ruddy gravel road of forgotten knowledge and no cellular reception. My wife had decided that I needed to take my bread obsession to the next level and signed me up to take a class to make my very own wood-fired oven using just bricks. Just bricks! Think reverse Jenga for hungry pyromaniacs. Now, there were also some novice bakers in this class, and so as the instructor was preparing his batch of pizza dough to be perfectly charred later on that day, he laid out some basics. He said, instant yeast is a living organism that is activated by water. But if your water is too cold, your dough will rise too slow. But if it is too hot, you are going to kill the yeast. So the best way to test a glass of water is with your digital thermometer. Wow! By the way, when you are repeating this awesome speech to your friends, make sure that you don't stir or spill the imaginary water in the glass with your finger still in it. It looks naughty. So, it took a baker far removed from power and appliances to make me realize that anything I made with my hands was done digitally. How cool is that? But that's hardly a revolutionary epiphany, since bread has been made, digitally made, for thousands of years before I got involved. How about retrovolutionary? How about brooms? I also make and geek out over brooms. Did you know that broom making as we know it today started out with the tassel of a sorghum plant that the Brits later immortalized as a broomcorn plant? But anyway, brooms, as we know it today, were invented in the United States just over 200 years ago by a farmer in Massachusetts. Now, this one I make from pearl grown in Mexico, and I wound it very nicely, I might add, with Artis Blue Mix number 18 nylon twine. However, I think that hand-tying brooms is a little old to be considered retro. I remember a rule of thumb saying that retro is restricted to only go back far as the 1950s. I will call my digital Antique digital manipulation, revivolutionary. Speaking of antique digitization, I can bring unplugged digital manipulation to nearly everybody's fingertips. Take this image of mine. I am about as my hair is about as business-like as it is ever going to get. A little digital tug and a shake. Now I'm casual. But if I want to take everyone here kicking and screaming back to the late 80s, maybe early 90s, you know, retro. Anybody in for a little grunge? Or for the ladies? How about Glamour Shots? So, when you leave here today, remember that I did not get this ultimate in digital manipulation by playing around on a smartphone. So the next time that you all are about to pick up that next digital gadget, remember that this invitation I would give to you today. Digitally remaster your world to create something timeless. Create something delicious. Create something unique. Create something beautiful. And then geek the heck out of it.
Now we know that digital does not necessarily mean penurious. Thank you, Chris. I will ask for 1 minute for written evaluations. And then, Mary, do we go right into the feedback session right now? Before? Okay.
And you don't even have to do written at this point.
Only if you wanted to. Okay. Okay, we'll skip that then. So I will open it up to any comments for Chris before his contest.
I think you had some really great one-liners in there, like keeping it going. You had the good theme with the comedy throughout, keeping it light. And I thought that was a really good way to keep everybody laughing along with those one-liners that you threw in there, right? As far as improvements, I would give you though, the two areas that I think kind of work together with it. The digital part of it in the beginning wasn't completely pulled in, it didn't feel like. So maybe mention digital or bring it in a little bit earlier, a little more often, the beginning part of it. We talk about digital and maybe start moving us into or transitioning our minds into the digital versus the digital side of it. And then also I think along with that, the transitions between all three of those stories or three of those areas, still a little, maybe make them longer, maybe pull digital into it a little bit more. They both seemed a little bit sharp to me as far as jumping from one to the next.
And to be honest, that was intentional to a certain degree.
Okay. So yeah, maybe that's something that I just
my intention was they seemingly totally unrelated items. There really is no transition, but if there is some ideas to maybe, backhandedly connect them to. Yeah, I do remember. I do remember when we had the contest. I waved my fingers around a little more. Maybe that could be. Would that help a little bit?
Because then you get it, oh, it's digital.
Right.
People might not get that right away.
Okay, yeah, I don't remember the dream sequence as much during this speech. I don't remember doing that as much. So.
I was gonna say, what's the word that you said, not deep in word, but
Gird.
gird? I would love to hear that again. So when you are talking about the rooms and maybe at the end it's like you take it out of it, it's gird like it out of it. I don't know how you might throw it in there again, but it's a fun word. I just want to hear that again.
I didn't know how many people would recognize it started with the meme, the internet meme, Ermagerd. I didn't know if anybody here So anyway, yeah, we're too intelligent for that little silliness, but anyway, no, but it is a combination of geek and nerd, and I could tie that into, in conclusion.
And that's always a good, like, for a common geek, pulling that back from the previous one, referencing it.
Chris had some amazing times. But the only negative thing I saw in the entire speech is he felt a little uncomfortable. He kept going on the turned hero cape to the
Yeah.
actual apron. A few times you look like you're really uncomfortable with holding on that side.
It's a very heavy cape.
So that that's not bothering you.
Right.
Maybe a collared shirt? Oh, no, you can't, it's wearing a set shirt.
I thought I might be able to remember tying it again once it's around. Now it's still would be kind of, maybe I'll just plain remove it.
Yeah.
Just
Yes.
removing it.
After you keep the cape and the hero.
Don't remove it? Oh, I have some, keep the cape. I've been watching credits, so yeah, keep the cape.
We love the cape.
All right, well, I'll work on something to see if I can't get that, or maybe I
Or-
just,
Go ahead.
For graduation uniforms, they had like a little button there so that your cape that goes, the hood that goes by, you button on it. If you had just
Oh.
a button.
And you
scroll
can do that
under
for
it.
your digits too. You can sew
Okay.
on with your digits.
I need a bread brooch right here.
Or you can even do Velcro dots on your shoulder. So you can flip it over.
That's super great.
Okay, so, yeah, okay, I leave the cape, but work on.
Just for your comfort.
And if there's anything, well, that's a good point, if you are tugging on it or anything like that, that might be a good time to throw in kind of a, out of the speech type of, you know, tough life being a gird or something like that with your cape, or,
Okay.
you know, reference the cape. So
I was just thinking maybe I'll just turn it around and put a binder clip right there or something.
oh, there you go, yeah.
Resourceful. So,
This is the very first time I've heard you speak, and I thought it's hilarious. Dr. Gamer Push-Up on that. I do have to say, I was a little bit lost after, in the beginning, I thought we were going to hear about bread. And then, you know, as Chris mentioned, and then transition, okay, he was talking about digits, and then the bread part totally threw me for a loop for a minute, so I need to go back to that and just say, if you could at least clarify in the beginning a little bit more
Somehow-
for the slow learners in the group, what you're going to be presenting. I was lost.
so bring into it, and warn you that I'm going to be multitasking or, okay.
Do like in 4 lines, or in 3 lines, and then go back. Even if you do some of the digital stuff up front.
I thought you were going to be sharing your recipes with us, and then it turned into broom making. That part I got lost.
How about from broom making to, does, one of the, can't remember the tool, but one of the transitions I had was, so how about revolutionary? And then I use that same sentence, how about brooms? And then I go from antique digitization with the brooms. And then I go to, speaking of digitization, you know, those were the cleanest things I could come up with.
I
but-
wasn't following it like you expected. So
Okay.
I'm just putting it out there as the first time I've heard it.
Okay,
And those that have already heard it knew what to
Yeah,
expect.
yeah.
I didn't, and I seriously thought it was more about bread than it was about the digits.
This is the first time I heard you speak too, and the broom one threw me a little bit, but the second one, or the third time, you transitioned into ours. So maybe it's just inserting a little more transition into the broom
okay.
part of it.
And I remember the first time I heard this speech that I felt the same way, that I was completely like, "Whoa, what? We're not talking about that anymore?" And so maybe that's something that tying in with the digit thing, you can mention that at the beginning as kind of your setup, your intro, to say, hey, we're gonna be talking about a lot of different digital things.
There you go.
So you don't have to go into detail that I'm talking about thread, brooms, and hair. It's gonna be, you can go and just be vague about it, but let them know that it's not just thread.
How about if I start with high tech, like 3 high tech, I only had scanners and printers, but if I had 3 things and then I come back and say I have 3 things that are completely the opposite of latest and greatest. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for the productive feedback session. Normally, we would have a table topic session where it's a segment of our meetings where we allow people to extemporaneously speak. We are going to skip over that today in lieu of time. So at this point, I'd like to ask our general evaluator, Mary Peters, to open up our evaluation portion. Mary?
Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and especially our warm and welcome guests. To do the evaluation portion, which is probably one of the most important parts, as I call up evaluators to talk about each of the speeches that we currently accept for Chris's. With that in mind, I'm going to invite John up to evaluate Abby's speech. Would you please help me welcome John?
Distinguished guest, especially I'm happy. It's a very interesting story. I have never been to Alaska, and I'm kind of looking for it. Someone get me to hiking, but now I'm considering to go hiking as well. You started very well with telling us, giving us the introduction of what you are going to be doing to Alaska week, and as well as the role that they now play in your life. So it gives us that transitions to expect you to be having fun. And according to what I'm supposed to evaluate, you get to the point of the story, we're able to follow along and able to create an image of what the situation is all about. The only thing that I couldn't really add anything, but I have to, find something, is towards the end when you're talking about how you get down to you're coming back and you couldn't get to the bus. And that area was hoping that you'll be able to put more feelings into it about how disappointed you are, how scared you are, but you just kind of explain that the bus wasn't there and it was 2 days and then you were waiting and then you came down and things like that. Well, if you can feel into the story what happened within those 2 days. I know you're running out of time, maybe you would have put into it. But if you can, put into that situation, like the story of, I know you're cold and you're running out of food, or then what activities happened, or what did you do to fill that time to get you not to think about what's going to happen. And I think that's one thing that I have to add to the story. Otherwise, it's brilliant. You're very vivid. You tell us about how it rained, what's getting into the tent, and the animals that are scaring you, but then it turns out that it's something that's, as dreadful as you think it is. And that's very, very awesome. And also I like how you handle with the quote, and I kind of try to remember the quote. So it said, whenever you go into nature, you should be prepared to embrace or accept whatever you expect. I don't know if that's directly, but that's the understanding that I have. And I mean, it's an awesome way to finish it because, I was trying to remember the quote, and it's kind of also able to want to expect something like, I cannot handle. Otherwise, it's awesome, and thank you for telling the story. We really want to know.
our guests, you notice that John gave both positive feedback and then constructive feedback. And that's so important in Toastmasters, because why would you come to Toastmasters if somebody's going to give you all positive feedback? We want constructive feedback. I think you'll see the same as I invite Jenny up. Jenny's going to be evaluating Amy's speech on Great Expectations. Would you help me welcome Jenny?
General evaluator, my Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most distinguished guests, especially Amy. Great Expectations. During the 5 to 8 minutes of Amy's speech, I don't know that any of us in the audience experienced a penury of interest. It was interesting. So the purpose of this talk is for the speaker to inform the audience of a subject of interest. And although maybe somewhat lighthearted, I think we were all very interested in it. One other requirement is that you use at least one prop or one visual aid. The visual aids that were used were wonderful. We had the 3 water bottles that you could reference and you could see throughout the session. The different photos that you had up front of the flags and even the grapes to start us off was very interesting. It grabbed everyone's attention right away. If I could offer one critical piece of feedback, it was just that with those visuals we had up front, they were a little bit small. The font was a little bit hard to read a little bit further back. You explained them very well, so we know what they were, but the actual font was a little bit difficult to read. How well was this speech generated or given to the backgrounds of the audience? I think you touched on all the audience, talking about how different cultures might see the different flavors, the different colors, and so on, and then you provided the information to back it up. Another piece of, or another critique of this, not critique, that's the wrong word, but another requirement is that you show your research. And the research, and you reference it quite well throughout the speech, was her son's study, which you helped with, but also the Oxford study and other pieces you referenced very well throughout the speech. Let me see here. The speech was very, like I said, well researched. If I could offer one more piece of critical feedback, it would be just the conclusion. The conclusion, when you had said something like apple, 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 then end it right there. That was a great conclusion. When in fact you said, so that's the information, take it how you will, or something like that. Again, with Amy's speeches, it's especially difficult because I have to work to find those critical pieces. It was such a minor thing, a great speech. You did a very nice job. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from our grammarian, Amit.
Madam General Evaluator and dear guests, though all the speeches which we gave, there was nothing penurious about it, we were a bit frugal when we used the words. It was because we threw it off. Joe used it once, Donna used it once, and Jenny used it once. Coming to some of the creative language which I heard, Abby's speech was very nice. You kind of took us all over the map. I was like, Polychrome Mountain. Wow! And then I was fighting with those cubs. I was seeing the grizzly chasing me. I was looking at the nylon ripped off from my shoes. I mean, so we gave a very good idea about how things were on the sheet. We got a very good, vivid image. Amy's perceptions of the 3 bottles, it reminded me of my medical school days. My friend would say, that pink one, that's my rum for Monday. And that orange one, that is for Tuesday. And that green one, maybe Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we ran out of booze because we ran out of money. These are the bottles we have at the medical school. I was kind of taken back there. As you said, it was cultural. My cultural thing was, man, I love that stuff. I had some of my Jamaican friends, let's have it, man. That was great. Chris, you did great. There was one thing which I wanted to add was we have done this in different clubs. Keep it simple. Maybe 2, more than 3. And Deanna pointed that out. Maybe keep 2 things. talk about two things rather than the broom. So, and don't use too many fancy languages, retro and all the stuff. When you go to bigger and bigger, I think you're going to you're going to do very well, from my experience. But as you go to bigger and bigger audience, there's going to be, your judges are going to be from all over. So they won't be thinking that digital, they will get it, but you have to simplify it. So I would say, look at the speech, love it, cut 10% of it, and then practice on it, so that you put your pauses and things like that. Well, our speeches were very clean, no ahs, no arms, nothing. But whenever we go to our evaluation section, because it is not prepared, it's on the spot, that's where we get the ahs and ums. As you saw, so John, 3 months, and Jennifer, you had a fair number, 4 or 5, I think. I lost count of 4, but it's one of those things which you're always trying, instead of ahs, just always turn around.
Joe, I'm gonna have you stay right there and give us the timer's report.
Well, Amy asked for 6 to 8 minutes and used 8 minutes, 40 seconds. Abby. Amy asked for 5 to 7 and used 6.37 minutes plus 48 seconds of an introduction, which I don't think was part of the speech. Chris asked for 5 to 7 minutes and used 6.56 seconds. However, the feedback that he got took 8 minutes and 20 seconds. John stayed within, in fact, the two evaluators all stayed within the limits. John used 2 minutes, 54 seconds, and Jennifer used 2 minutes, 22 seconds. Our grammarian wasn't really supposed to be speaking that long. But thank goodness he did. He used 2 minutes and 53 seconds. We have to give him credit for his whole speech.
I will be very brief with my general evaluator comments. I was late, but I heard that we started just a few minutes late, which is typical for an open house. This is an unusual open house in that we did give feedback for Chris, which meant we didn't have time for table. That would be my only critique. Otherwise, we have 8 guests. Thank you so much for coming. And I'm going to turn it back to Deanne, who's going to finish us off.
I'm trying to get you out the door right now. I know we're just a little bit over. I want to thank everyone for coming today. I hope our guests will come back. You're welcome to come as many times as you like. And thank you for being here.
So to all our guests, please feel free to look at our website and come back as many times as you want. We meet on Wednesday. We expect you to think of joining our club.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Thanks for stopping there. I hope you don't feel too much. I don't want to go feel
That was human.
I love it. Now we can
That's
say.
amazing.
I know.
To make a suggestion, but we ran out.
Oh, sure, yes.
I don't want to take all the credit. Oh, no. Yeah, but we thought, because your bread shirt made us think of bread the whole time. So we thought after you talked about bread, you could talk about DigiGird, like put a post-it on you. Because if it was here, I would know what you're talking about, your digital
Okay.
cut off.
Oh, I love that.
So,
You know, doing all, the digital.
we love the cake. Yeah. Okay.